Welcome to this week's America with an Accent. January, February, and early March are busy and stressful months for high school students applying and being admitted to colleges. This time is equally stressful for parents as well, who are getting ready to see their children off. This is the first installment of America with an Accent dedicated to college admission. Today's episode is about the application and admission process. What are the main steps of the process? How do you choose which colleges to apply for? What and who determines admission to a school? Sarah Richardson, the Assistant Vice Provost for Enrollment Management and Director of Admissions and Scholarships at Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska, walks us through the process. It is college time. Sarah Richardson is the Assistant Vice Provost for Enrollment Management and Director of Admissions and Scholarships at Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska. Previously, Sarah was Associate Director of Admission at Fordham University in New York, and before that, Assistant Director of Admission at Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa. Thank you, Sarah, for being here today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Let's start with clarifying the terminology first and making sure that we understand what we're talking about. Many times we hear college, university, higher education. Do those terms refer to the same stage in somebody's education cycle?
Generally, people are referring to the same thing. They say, I'm interested in higher education, I work in higher education. They mean I work at a college or university. Same thing if a student says they're going off to college, they're looking at colleges. That could be a university, which would be an institution that has multiple colleges within, which would be a focused academic area within a university, a four-year plan of study after high school. People often use those terms interchangeably.
Today we'll talk about bachelor's degree mainly.
Yes.
Let's start with the main steps. What are the main steps in the application and admission process?
The first step is to review and determine what's important to the student in a college search process. But submitting an application is important, and I know there are many different pieces of that process. But the first step is really determining, do I want to go on to college and attain a bachelor's degree? And what are the things that I'm interested in doing? What are my career goals? So that you can look at the right kinds of institutions.
So that is the very first step. When do you suggest, or when do you advise students and parents at the same time start thinking about this step? How early in high school should?
In my opinion, it's never too early. My children are, the oldest is in third grade, and I don't think it's too early to be talking about thinking about going to college, thinking about higher education, but the actual process of looking at colleges typically will start in the sophomore year of high school. Most typically, schools will start to be in touch with students at that point.
And then sophomore is the second year in high school. Is that
Second
right?
year.
Those are all new to me.
Yes.
I didn't know what that referred to. Okay.
Yes.
I understand that you said that figuring out your strongest interest and what you want to do is the A of everything. But what are some other factors that parents should consider and students at the same time when deciding which colleges to go to send the applications to?
Yeah, I think in the United States we have different kinds of institutions. There are state larger institutions, there are small private schools. Thinking about how far they want to be from home, how much they can afford to pay for college, and again, that overall general feeling that they might be looking for on a college campus. Where do the students come from? Will there be other students like them and what they're interested in, both academically and outside of the classroom?
Now let's start with the application process. What is early and regular application admission? Can you explain that to us?
Sure. There are many different application types, entry types for the application itself. And I think it's very common to be confused about those terms. There are early action, early decision, rolling admissions, and regular admissions. Early applications in general require an application that is submitted earlier in the senior year of high school. So that fourth year, the final year of high school, they're asking for applications typically in November. Some of those have a requirement that the student enroll if they're admitted. An early decision policy means essentially that the student has made an early decision that if they are admitted to that school, they're going to enroll. They're going to start classes at that school. Early action simply means that a student is taking an early step to find out if they'll get admitted, but it does not mean that they have to enroll in that school. Rolling admissions is where a school, like often is the case in the Midwest where we're located, will continue to roll out admissions decisions throughout the academic year, and there's not a certain point in time that a student should expect to hear back from that school. They typically will make a decision within 2 weeks. Regular admission tends to go alongside an early policy school. So they might have an early policy where an application is due in November and a regular decision policy where an application is due at the latest in mid-January.
So if you go for the early admission, not action, but admission, and you decide you will apply to 3 schools, and let's say all 3 schools say yes, how do you decide?
You're actually only allowed to apply to 1 school under the early decision policy. You can apply early decision to one and early action to others, but as soon as a student finds out that they were admitted to that early decision school, they have to withdraw their application from other institutions.
So it is an important decision to make.
Absolutely.
And we're talking about November, you said?
Yes. So to be able to be in a position in November of your last year of high school to say, this is where I'm going, all things considered, is pretty unique. A student has had to do a lot of research, a lot of planning. It even means, regardless of the financial aid situation, you're not going to have financial aid information when you're making that decision.
And what is the most common of all those 4 categories that you mentioned?
Most common is probably a combination of an early action policy, which is non-binding, and rolling admissions.
And rolling admissions, that's, you said that there is not a deadline, right?
Correct.
It's not that you start here. You start
Correct.
whenever you feel comfortable to make the decision. And the regular admission, is there a deadline involved in that too?
Yes, regular admission will have a deadline, usually mid-January, and they'll notify students by the 1st of April, typically.
Okay. Since we're talking about the admission process, there is something else that I encounter is, what is CSS and FAFSA?
Yes.
Can you please explain
Sure.
those abbreviations for us?
Sure. The CSS Profile is the College Scholarship Selection Profile. So that is done by the College Board, which is the same organization that does the SAT and AP classes if students are taking those. Those 2 forms, the CSS Profile and the FAFSA, are ways for families to submit information about their financial situation, their income, and basically trying to help schools determine how much can a particular family afford to pay for college.
And this is concentrated, this is national level, is that right?
Correct.
Are those 2 federal agencies that make the decision on that?
The FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. So that is a federal document that only a student who is a citizen of the United States can submit because it's federal aid that they're applying for. So the student themselves must be a citizen of the United States in order to qualify for federal funding, typically. The CSS Profile is different. That profile is done by a private organization, and that is determining in a different way a family's ability to pay for college. So any student, very typically international students as well, will be asked to fill out a CSS profile.
CSS profile. Now, do you apply and see if you qualify to those two organizations before you send your application out or after you send the application out?
That's a great question. I will also clarify that not every school will require the CSS profile. Almost every school will ask families to submit the FAFSA as a financial aid review, but you don't have to fill that out before you apply to colleges. In fact, it becomes available for you to fill out in October of the student's final year of high school. So you can't fill it out before then. October 1st is the date for the FAFSA, for example. So you have to fill it out at some point during the senior year. That's the very first time that you can do it.
Okay. And you said October 1st, right? Mm-hmm. And can be parallel done. You can submit your application first, and then you can fill out the financial aid application. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. What if a student doesn't need any financial aid? Mm-hmm. Can they register, and when can they start applying to schools?
Yes, and applications will typically open in August prior to the start of school in that last year of high school. And a student, regardless of whether or not they think that they will need financial aid or not, can start applying at that time. So a student who won't plan to apply for financial aid can apply as soon as August of their senior year.
Do you give any priorities to students that need financial aid versus students that don't need financial aid?
No institution that I have worked for has done that. That's something that schools will call need blind or need aware admissions policies, meaning that they want to know, can a need aware institution would want to know what the family's ability to pay for college is before they make an admissions decision. But most places don't require that information.
And when it is generally the deadline, generally speaking, because I understand that different schools have different specifics, but generally speaking, when should a student know that this month or mid-January, that's it, you can't apply, you can't send your application any longer?
Yeah, every school will have a different deadline. My advice to families, and this is just advice, is to try to submit it by mid-January of that senior year. It just gives you more time in case there are documents that are required by institutions in follow-up, that you've given yourself time to be able to submit that information and still have enough time to know, is this an affordable option for our family?
All right, and how can you submit the application? Is it all done online now, or you can mail it? What are the ways that the application can reach your office?
It is done online now.
Mm-hmm. All right. And now we are in the admission process, and this is your area of expertise. So I want to simplify the whole situation. I'm a parent, my kid has decided to go to school. We've put together the application package. The package makes it to your office. Mm-hmm. What comes next? First of all, what should it be in that package for to even be considered by your office?
Sure. The first step is submitting the actual application itself. That application can take many different forms depending on the school that they're applying to, but there is an application that is more common across many different institutions called the Common Application. That application takes down information about address and extracurricular activities, what kinds of clubs or organizations a student might be involved in, as well as a self-reported information about GPA in high school, test scores if they've taken ACT or SAT. That's the first piece. Then we require high school transcripts, Many schools require a standardized test score like an ACT or SAT score, and more information sometimes is required, like a letter of recommendation, information about the school that they're attending specifically.
So if I understand it correctly, you fill out a general application under common
application.
Application, and that is something that I, as a parent, do I have to pay for filling out the application in that common application?
It depends on the school. The fee will be based on the schools that the student decides to apply to. In the case of Creighton University, we have no application fee. In the case of Fordham University, there was an application fee.
So you fill it out there, and it is available to each school that you would like to apply for,
Correct.
right? And you just retrieve the information from that national base or from that database, and you transfer into your account. Okay. What do you look for in an application? And I would like to know, you get the package, right? Do you assign it to an officer? How does it, what is that step after the package makes it to your office?
Yeah, this will vary from school to school as well, but we, and all the schools that I've worked at has had a person assigned to a particular area. They'll read the applications for students from California or students from New York. They'll review that information, look for academic, can a student be academically qualified to be successful here? And then what are the other factors about the student? Will they be a good overall fit for this program, for our institution?
All right, I know, Sarah, that you have been busy. It's a busy time for you, and that you have prepared a nice PowerPoint. And I would like to really go over the case study.
Yeah.
What is that thing in a student application that you look at and you say, yes, he makes it, or she makes it? Or what is that thing that you look at it and you say, no, I'm sorry, you can't make it?
Right.
So can we go over the case study, student number 1, is that right?
Yes.
All right. And of course, my computer has gone to sleep, so. All right,
Yes.
so we have student A here.
So student A, we have information, this is very generalized and sort of condensed down, but they've submitted a test score, an ACT test score of a 23. A 23 would fall into the national average of ACT test takers. Our profile at Creighton is the middle 50% of students score between a 24 and a 30, to give context. The GPA, this is slightly below a B average, but right around there. The high school quality is determined by what kinds of classes are available to students, and beyond that, we study how do students from that particular school tend to perform when they get to college. Are they able to be successful? Are they well prepared? How does that fit with our institution? And then in this particular case, it's particularly important to know the major that they've applied for. So nursing happens to be competitive because of limited spaces in clinical seats later on. So this student has average to slightly below average credentials, and because of the competitive program of the program that they're interested in, they did not receive an admission offer.
And if the student had picked another major, did he or she have chances to be admitted?
Because of this particular high school performance, probably not.
Probably not. All right, let's move to case B. All right, student B. And ACT 25, GPA 2.52, slightly below average, and the major is education.
Yeah.
You stamped a deny again.
Yes.
What?
This is because though the ACT is showing that this student can be successful in college, they have demonstrated that they haven't been motivated at all in high school. They really haven't demonstrated that they have the self-motivation to be able to continue to be successful in college.
And that's why you gave a deny to that student. Now student C.
Yes. So this student has that same ACT as the first student, but they've done very well in high school, almost a straight A average in school, and a slightly above average performance from that high school in college. Looking at nursing, this is a really challenging space. We're gonna ask that student to wait to find out their ultimate decision until we know. We don't have a space for you today in the program, but potentially we would like to see this student given a space.
And had the student pick another major, probably chances were for that student to be admitted, is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So it's not just ACT, you score well and by default you will be in. I see that the GPA is important too.
It is,
and
absolutely.
The major as well.
The major influences in some cases, yes.
Okay. Now let's see student D.
So this student is a very solid ACT score, well in our middle 50% range, a solid GPA, B+ average, A- at a very good school, at a program that doesn't have competitive seats available in the program in computer science. But we pay attention to all of the information submitted. This student didn't put any effort into their essay. It was very short and looks like they may have used their cell phone to use texting or something instead of actually thinking about it.
Taking their time and show that they have thought about it.
So we went back to them and said, if you rewrite the essay, we'll look at it again.
So you would give a second chance to improve the application, and if that happens, if the student does that, he is in.
Yes,
is that right?
correct.
Okay. Let's see student E. Oh.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So this student, again, very similar profile to the last one. It comes from a school where students tend to do very, very well at our school in a strong program. They're demonstrating academically that they're going to be able to keep up with the rigor of that program. But in a close inspection of the transcript, we see that in the junior year, there was a real downturn in grades, and what had been a very strong performance up until that point went downhill. So we're asking to see how did they do in that first semester of senior year.
Wow.
Yeah.
F, a student
Yes,
F. I mean,
exactly.
It's an F, but it is a very great student, right?
Yes.
All right. So ACT is 21, right? GPA 3.23, well above average, major communication. It's admitted, it's a yes.
Yes,
right?
this student is a fairly average student, but they come from a very good school where they're really showing that they're working hard and they're achieving, and this is a student that can certainly continue to do well in college.
So it's a complicated process.
It is.
Every entry is not just grades.
Correct.
You really judge their personalities as well.
Absolutely.
And consistency. So it's not a coincidence if a student makes it to your school, you know who you're letting into your school.
Absolutely. And there's lots of things that make this very complicated. That a student could look on paper to be identical with another student, but that student that had a downturn in their junior year, perhaps something really traumatic happened in their life, and we just want to know how are they able to be resilient in those situations? Were they able to rebound and be successful? That will be important in college.
Okay, Sarah. I have a kid that is in middle school, and I keep pushing for grades.
Yes.
You know, I'm a typical mother.
Yeah.
Do you consider the middle school? I noticed that you do pay attention the background, the tradition of the school he is coming from. Right. Do you go all the way to middle school in terms of grades, or high school is what determines?
Yeah, high school is what determines. Having a really strong foundation in middle school will really help to set a student up to be more successful in high school. Just like being successful in high school sets students up to be successful in college. So we don't look at the middle school grades, though sometimes you may have a student who takes a middle school math class that's actually a high school level course. Sometimes that shows up on a high school transcript.
Okay. Well, thank you, Sarah, for being here today.
My
Hopefully,
pleasure.
we have provided a few answers to some of the questions that parents and students may have.
I hope so.
Thank you. Next week, we will cover how to pick the right college offer and families' take on this decision. And now, it is time for letters to Andy. Dear Andy, greetings from Omaha. I hope this letter finds you well. Remember Abraham from South Sudan? The conversation I had with him and his American friend Jim Thompson is still resonating in me. At the end of our conversation, Jim said, "Look at what Africa has lost and America has gained," referring to Abraham. His sentence revived in me a thought that I have pondered many a time. Have I ditched my country of origin? There is no question that to some degree, yes, I have. There are days when I so wish I was in Albania doing my part. There is an area that gets flooded all the time, painful to watch. However, the conversation with Jim and Abraham also made me think why the same person flourishes here in America as opposed to his or her country of origin. As Jim said, it is the system that enables that. Here, there is no you can't, only if you want it that way, of course. It's yes, you can, and the system facilitates the effort. It is the system that believes in human power and provides the opportunity. I don't think there is an immigrant who left because things were great in their countries. Leaders of a country should realize the weight of their leadership on a country's future, the impact of their todays to the country's tomorrow. Until the system provides just like it does here, countries will continue to suffer the brain drainage. Now back to Jim's observation regarding loss and gain. I don't think Albania has lost me. I have lost Albania. As for gains, sure, America has gained, but we immigrants gain too, feel accomplished, content, and indirectly, our countries of origin are better off too. But that is another topic I can think about. And I have time, especially these days when we are housebound. It is minus 25 degrees Celsius outside right now. I'm writing to you, Andy. Till next time, Enkeda. This was America with an Accent for this week. I hope to see you again next week here on KPAO or online at newamericansmedia.com, our Facebook page, and our NAM YouTube channel. I am Enkeda Vebio.